a great pleasure for me to be with you this morning. Not too long ago, I had a conversation with a former student of mine who had a rather unfortunate incident occur in his life and in his student career his senior year in high school, where I happened to be at that point the head of the upper school at a school in Washington, D.C. He had had up to this point a very successful career at the school. He was a class officer, highly respected by his peers. But he landed in the middle of his senior year in front of the Honor Council for an honors violation. And it was my responsibility as the head of the upper school to receive the recommendation of the Honor Council, which was, as upon the hearings, the decision that he should be suspended. I accepted that recommendation, but at the point where he felt life was falling apart, as we would all likely seem to think after such devastating news, life did go on for him. He went on to a very fine college. He married a wonderful wife, has great children, very promising career. The world looks terrific for him today. But he said a very interesting thing to me that day in our conversation. He said that not a day passes where he does not think about that day, his senior year, when he was suspended. I was puzzled by that. And I thought, well, maybe he has some lingering anger about that. Perhaps it's guilt. So I asked him, why is it that you go back to that over and over again? And he said there's a good reason. Because it helps me realize on a day-to-day basis not to get too carried away with my own success and to come to realization once again of some of the realities of life, which include both mountains and valleys. I was reminded, when he mentioned this, of the story of what happened when Roman emperors would return to the city after a military triumph. They would come in on a chariot to cheering crowds and great glory. But in the back seat of the chariot, there would be a slave holding the golden crown of Jupiter and whispering in his ear, "Remember, Caesar, thou art mortal." You would think, from the reading from the Hebrew Bible today, that this particular day would be of great triumph for King David. He has crushed a rebellion, and the leader of that rebellion is dead. But that, of course, is not the full story. The leader of that rebellion was his son. And as the troops went into battle, so the narrator tells us, the first thing that King David says to the troops is, "Deal gently with my son Absalom." Absalom rebelled against his father because of injustices that were not addressed within the family itself. And it was an extension of the narrator's words put into the prophet Nathan after the incident with Bathsheba, when Nathan told David, "The sword will never depart from your house." And Heischman comes back with good news. The rebellion has been crushed. The victory has been won. King David is triumphant. But twice, King David asked the same question, not about the battle, but how is my son Absalom? And finally, he hears the news, which sets him into some of the deepest grief that is recounted in all of the biblical narrative. King David does not ask for details about the battle. He doesn't even ask about the details of his son's death. He simply lands into pure grief. David has come face to face with a great shortcoming in his life. He's a king, but he's also a father. And in that grief, no doubt, he feels very little except failure. You and I go through life from time to time, or in fact many times, coming face to face with our own mistakes, our own failures, our own shortcomings. And the truth of the world today is not only do we make mistakes, but that more and more it is likely that the world will know about those mistakes. Thanks to technology, there are all sorts of ways that people can find out about our shortcomings. And there are enough unforgiving people out there in the world who are more than eager to point out the shortcomings of individuals or institutions. Chances are, not only will we make mistakes in life, but a lot of people will know about them. And if you're at all like me, you spend a lot more time, as I do, on the mistakes that I have made than the triumphs or the successes. And if I lie awake at night tossing and turning, most likely I am thinking about those things that have not gone right in my life. Joan Didion once in an essay talked about how we toss and turn, thinking about the sins of omission and commission, the trust betrayed, the promises subtly broken, the gifts wasted. As she put it, we do that in our own bed, the bed we make uncomfortably for ourselves. But I think there's a reason why we mull over these mistakes and shortcomings. And it's not to beat up on ourselves. It's not to live in regret or guilt. It is the plain and simple fact in life that we learn more from our mistakes than any other kind of experience we have in life. They are there, to be sure, but they are there to teach us, to instruct us, to help us grow, and not only move on, but to live life at a deeper level. No wonder that Kevin Scherer, who is the CEO of Amgen, used to have a picture of General Custer in his office to remind him on a daily basis that we can't think too much of ourselves, or we cannot get life's picture distorted. Or why David Brooks recently, in a New York Times article, recommended to employers not to hire those people whose resumes simply say success after success. But he advised those employers to look for people who have had setbacks in life and have bounced back from them. As he put it, hire people who have found and traveled the way of sorrow, for their chances for the future are bright. Many students that I taught and who I worked with on the David stories in the Hebrew Bible would oftentimes ask me, after reading such sections as we heard this morning, I cannot believe that this material is in the Bible. Where in the world is God in all of this? As I think about it, both then and now, I think about the fact that God is in how we respond once those events take place. That the quality of our lives and the depth of our relationship with God is determined not by what happens, but by our response to what happens. How we work with what we have encountered, what we make of it, and how life proceeds after that. In many ways, that's what character is about. Not so much what happens, but our response to it. Mary Pickford once said that failure is not about falling. Failure is about the refusal to get back up again once something has happened. King David's life is never the same again. How could it possibly be after the death of his son? But he continues. He continues in some of the most successful reign in his history. And he teaches us, just as that student taught me, that mistakes in life are the prelude to a deeper life. And if we have the courage of our mistakes to take them off the shelf, dust them off, revisit them from time to time, perhaps even make friends with them, we will know something of life and experience life at such a level that those indeed are some of the most important experiences we will ever have. Amen.